yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao hata zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amina. Can you establish whether you have quorum, clerk? Sajita Tams, ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
Our dear viewers, that has been the Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Kathure Murungi, currently presiding over the business of the House, who has just ordered that the Sergeant terms during the quorum bell for 10 minutes. This directive, guided by the House Standing Orders on matters quorum, is to give senators some room to make their way into the chamber this morning, to raise the number to the number of 15 senators who are the quorum to commence business at any given time when the House is sitting. So as we await for that quorum to be attained, allow me to take you through the order paper this morning on some of the businesses for consideration by the House. It is a full entry order paper this morning, awaiting the execution of senators, debates, and consideration of various amendments to bills. There are a number of reports in regards to Kenyan delegation that represented the Parliament of Kenya outside the country for various parliamentary sessions. Among them is a report of the 63rd and 64th session of the OACPS Parliamentary Assembly and the 43rd and the first session of ACP-EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly meetings held in Brussels, Belgium, and Luanda in Angola, respectively. This is a motion where the chair of the delegation, Honorable Kathure Murungi, will be seeking to have the Senate note the reports of the 63rd of the Organization of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific States Parliamentary Assembly and the 43rd session of the African, Caribbean, Pacific, European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly meetings held in Brussels, Belgium between the 19th to the 28th of June. The other report pertains the 64th session of the Organization of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific States Parliamentary Assembly and the first session of the African, Caribbean, and the Pacific European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly meetings held in Luanda in Angola from the 17th to the 21st of February 2024. Away from the motions on senatorial caucuses that represented the Senate of Kenya in various parliaments across the globe, the stoppage of funds to Isiolo County due to the failure by the governor to honor Senate summons is according to today's order paper, motion number 22, by the Senator for Isiolo County, Senator Fatma Dulo. In the motion, the Senator has listed that aware that pursuant to Article 96 of the Constitution, the Senate represents counties and serves to protect the interest of counties and their governments, and that the Senate exercises oversight over the national revenue allocated to the county governments, and further aware that Article 124 of the Constitution establishes committees to carry out specific mandates, and that Article 125 of the Constitution gives any committee the power to summon any person to appear before it for the purposes of giving evidence and providing information. Whereas the Senate Standing Committee on Matters Health invited and later summoned the Governor for Isiolo County, Honorable Abdi Ibrahim Hassan, to respond to questions relating to, among others, the ongoing crisis in Isiolo Morgue, NHIF deductions and remittances status, and the total amount of pending bills owed to the county hospital, which invitation he has failed to honor from the 21st of May 2024, and similarly failed to honor summons on the 28th of May and the 10th of June 2024. Senator Dulo goes on to say in a motion that whereas the Governor for Isiolo County failed to appear and to honor an invitation by the County Public Investments and Special Funds Committee to respond to issues raised by the Auditor General's report on Isiolo County's Bursary Fund, the Isiolo County Emergency Fund, and the Isiolo County Youth, Women, and People with Disability Fund for the financial years ending 2019-2020 rather, 2020-2021, 2021 and 2022 on the 28th of May. And further, whereas the Governor for Isiolo County failed to honor 5 invitations, the Senator for Isiolo County seeks to have the House resolve that pursuant to Article 228, subsection 4 and 5 of the Constitution, the control of budget should not authorize any withdrawal of public funds by the county government of Isiolo until the Governor has responded to issues raised in the summons to the satisfaction of senators, and that too, the National Treasury, pursuant to Articles 225 of the Constitution and Section 98 of the Public Finance Management Act, stops forthwith the transfer of funds to the county government of Isiolo. The development of a policy and law for social risk management in matters infrastructure development projects in Kenya is a motion by nominated Senator Catherine Muma, who has listed in a motion that aware that the Constitution has entrenched a strong Bill of Rights in Chapter 4, which recognizes human rights, including social, economic rights, and the principle of equality and non-discrimination. And whereas aware that Kenya lacks a policy for the guiding of management of these social risks in the design and implementation of its infrastructure project, and the Senator in her motion is concerned that there is inadequate attention to social risks in the planning and implementation of development projects at both the national and county government levels, making them unacceptable and ending up in the rise in the cost of the taxpayer colossal sums of money in suits filed before courts and tribunals by local communities and the affected interest groups seeking protection from such social risks. The nominated Senator, Senator Catherine Muma, seeks to have the Senate resolve that the national government, the county governments do develop a social risk management policy that outlines the standards, guidelines, and procedures for guiding infrastructure and other development projects, both at the national and at the county government, and that too, the National Executive establishes an independent multi-sectoral agency under the authority of Cabinet Secretary in charge of Social Security and Protection. The Cabinet Secretary in charge of Social Security and Protection will be overseeing the National Executive, the independent multi-sectoral agency that will be overseen by the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Social Security and Protection, and the multi-sectoral agency will be designing a mechanism that can factor in the inclusion of social impact assessment standards and also monitor their implementation in infrastructure and other development projects in Kenya. Our dear viewers, we are waiting to see if the Senate of Kenya this morning will raise the quorum to commence business this morning. And in the event that the House fails to raise the quorum, then the Speaker, pursuant to the standing orders, is empowered by the standing orders to direct that the House is adjourned, or the Speaker rules that the House is adjourned until the next time when the House will be sitting. Today being a Tuesday, we equally have another sitting in the afternoon, but that directive is pegged on whether the House will have raised quorum this morning. The consideration of bursary funds for equitable access to education in Kenya is a motion by the Senator for Kiambu County, Senator Karungu Adhangwa. Senator Adhangwa has listed in his motion that aware that pursuant to Article 53 of the Constitution, every child in Kenya is entitled to free and compulsory basic education and Basic Education Act. Basic education should be guided by the principles such as equitable access to all our youth and equal access to education institutions. The Senator has noted in his motion that over the years, various interventions have been made, including the issuance of bursaries through the National Government Constituency Development Fund, popularly known as NGCDF, and the National Government Affirmative Action, NGAF, the Ministry of Education, and the county governments through various county bursary funds. The Senator is concerned that despite these efforts, school fees remains unaffordable for many parents, and the allocation of bursaries has been plagued by nepotism, favorism, and political manipulation, as well as lack of transparency and accountability. Further concerned that public learning institutions are primarily funded by the government through the Ministry of Education, and in the financial year 2024-2025, approximately 656 billion shillings were allocated to the education sector, making it difficult to ascertain the transparency in the disbursement of bursaries from various agencies, which, according to the Senator, makes it difficult to determine the total amount allocated in the financial year, and thus hindering the efforts to ensure equitable access to education. Allow me to hand over back to the chamber. The Senator for Kiambu County, Senator Karongo Dhangwa, in his motion in regards to the consolidation of bursaries for the equitable access to education of Kenya, seeks to have the Senate urge the Ministry of Education to audit the funds allocated to bursaries, both the national government and the county governments, that there is consolidation of funds distributed by various government entities and agencies with the aim of directing that these funds be sent to schools as supplementary capitation to facilitate the achievement of free secondary education. And that number 3, there is a calculation of the cost of education per learner and make this information public for primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, including a detailed breakdown of the annual financial requirements of each student across the country. The House, away from considering the motion on consolidation of bursary funds and calculation of monies, popularly known as per capita per learner, the House is this morning set to consider the report of the 9th Interparliamentary Union Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians held in Vietnam. The other report is the 14th, the report of the 14th Ordinary Session of the Plenary Assembly and related meetings of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference of the Great Lakes region, held in Livingstone, Zambia, from the 15th to the 19th of April 2024. Senator Veronica Maina, on behalf of the Senate caucus that represented Kenya in the parliamentary delegation to the 2024 Joint United Nations Interparliamentary Union parliamentary hearings that were held in the United Nations headquarters in New York, United States of America, from the 8th to the 9th of February 2024, is seeking to have the Senate note the report of the parliamentary delegation to the 2024 Joint United Nations Interparliamentary Union parliamentary hearings held in the United Nations headquarters in New York. The team laid its report on the table of the House on the 17th of September 2024. The report of the proceedings of the Parliamentarians' Dialogue to the African Climate Summit 2023, held in the National Assembly Chamber, Parliament Buildings in Nairobi, between the 3rd to the 6th of September 2023, is yet another motion lined up for deliberations this morning. This motion is by Senator for Homa Bay, Senator Moses Kajwang, who is seeking to have the Senate note the report of the proceedings of Parliamentarians' Dialogue.
Honorable Senators, there being no quorum and having rung the bell pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 40 subsection 2, the Senate stands adjourned until later today, 15th October 2024 at 2:30 p.m.